Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I'm so sorry that this has taken me a while to get this up and running. Uh, Thank you for being here. Welcome to the live stream where you can ask me anything. I am David Kadavy. We already have a lot of great questions submitted about self-publishing, productivity, creativity, marketing, and more. And at this point, I'm not taking questions from the Google that I shared back. Watching, please ask your questions in the chat. Uh, Now, to chat, you're going to need to be subscribed to my channel. There's going to be a delay after you do subscribe before you can chat. So it's best to subscribe right now if you do plan to chat. I'm not trying to get subscribers here. I'm just trying to keep the chat safe and manageable for me as a one-person team. And I think there's about a 30-second delay in the chat, so you might notice a lag. And I just want to confirm to everybody, okay, yes, Neil is telling me, see you now. Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you so much to everybody for your patience. I was just having a little bit of technical difficulty. I would say it was user error. But let's get right to the questions. And one question here is, at what stage of the process should I decide the number of words for my nonfiction book? What are the factors to take into consideration for defining the number of words? Okay, so this would be anywhere from before starting to after writing your first draft, and it's going to depend on a few different things. So I think, first of all, word count is important to genre. So if I think like epic fantasy would be, high hundreds of thousands of words, something like that. And self-help business books are often somewhere like 50,000. So the Heart Start is like 30,000. Mind management, time management is like 65,000. And so it's important to look at your genre and kind of get an idea of what is the average in your genre. Now, that's not going to mean that that is necessarily the word count that you should have, because you should also ask yourself, how many words are necessary to get your point across? So I've got digital Zettelkasten back here in the corner. That one's like 13,000 words. And that's just not like, that's not really a genre yet. Well, I mean, I guess there is like Kindle short reads and there's some categories there, but that's not necessarily the genre that it's in. But that book has done extremely well. Um, I don't even know how many. I made close to 20,000 copies at this point. So definitely ask yourself the kind of average for your genre, but also ask yourself, how many words do I really need to get my point across? Because as a self-published author, you aren't going to be beholden to some kind of word count. Assuming you are self-published, that you aren't going to be beholden to some kind of word count requirement that, like you might with a traditional publisher, where they might say that, you've got to have it within these number of words. Now, the third factor is you. Like, how confident are you in your ability to finish and ship a book? And that is going to change throughout your career. That's going to change as you write books. So for my first book, I wrote Design for Hackers, was over 50,000 words, and it was illustrated and stuff. But I at least had a publisher that was like giving me money, giving me deadlines, gave me an editor and things like that, and kept me motivated to finish that book, to write that book. And so um, I had that motivation there. Now, when I did my first self-published book, The Heart to Start, that was like it's like a 27,000 word. I think I said 30,000, but it's like a 27,000 word book, which is quite short. And part of that is just how confident was I that I could get that book out there. Now I can sit down and feel like I can write a 65,000 word book, if that's, as long as I feel like it's necessary, and if I feel like it has enough potential to succeed, because I have experience writing books, and so I have the confidence that I can finish that. So I hope that is helpful for you. Now, I've got some long ones here. I'm going to check the chat here, see if anything's going on. All right. Got some long ones here. This is about sustainable work rhythm and balancing flow and breaks. So this person gave me some context. They said, like many creative workers, I work on large projects that cannot be completed in a single work session. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. This often leads me to working overtime because I unconsciously try to finish things. They try to finish things even though they know that the work is not going to be done, no matter how long they work in that session, just about, even though they're a GTD practitioner and know how to deal with those open loops. Now, as a result, they end up focusing too much on completion and too little on the process itself. And another factor that contributes to my overworking is the fear of not getting back into flow the next day. To avoid this, I tend to extend my work sessions beyond what's sustainable, skipping breaks and working until exhaustion. The Pomodoro technique isn't helpful in my case because when I'm in flow, I just ignore the timer and keep going. So the question, so that's just all context. The question is, besides the Hemingway method, is there a proven strategy to end a work session in a way that allows me to seamlessly pick up where I left off the next day without fearing that I won't regain my flow? My goal is to build stronger trust in my ability to re-enter flow at any time, so I don't feel compelled to keep working once I've found it. How can I, as a result, make the transition between flow and breaks more natural and intuitive rather than purely system based so that I can actually stick to it? Now, they mentioned the Hemingway method. I want to fill in what that is and what I assume that person means for those who are unfamiliar. This is something that I use, which is uh, just stopping, for example, mid sentence or sometimes mid word. And it helps if it's kind of like, you know, what's going to happen, like a beat has occurred, but you're sort of in the middle of that beat, so to speak. And so that way, you know that when you come back, you can just finish typing that word or finish typing that sentence, and you already have some momentum there. Now, the problem is this person doesn't trust their ability to pick up again another time, and so they end up working until they're burnt out. So, a few things here. One is maybe that's just how you work. Um, I have gotten to the point where I mean, this is kind of how I used to work. But now I am a lot more dispassionate. I'm a lot more sit down and just try every day to have some kind of a habit of working on whatever the active project is, if that's like a book, for example, and just put in my time or my word count and get in there and get it done. And let's see here, looking at the chat really quick just to see if there's stuff I'm going to have to catch up with. Um, now, the key problem here, I think, is this assumption of flow. And you know that if you're getting into flow in your work sessions, that's awesome. Flow is great. You kind of lose track of time. You feel really focused. Um, it feels good. Honestly, I don't get into flow that often, I don't think. Or I don't, not like the really deep sort of flow that I get into. Um, I feel like I get into flow more often when I'm working on something where I really don't have any sort of end goal in mind. That's how I end up losing track of time. But as my career has um, progressed, I am more often working on something where there's kind of some end goal in mind and there's some expectation of reward. And so you might want to ask yourself if your career is transitioning to a point where flow isn't the thing that you're chasing all the time. Like I don't know how realistic it really is to get into flow um, on a really regular basis. Uh, because I mean, just neurochemically, I think it takes up a lot of. I mean, I don't know the exact neurochemistry, but I don't think it's something that you can sustain for a great deal of time. So what I'm in is I just have the repeatable work session, um, and at the end of a work session, like this Hemingway method is really valuable for people who are not writers. It could be like I've done this if I'm coding or running in or working on a bug and I'm not getting anywhere, but I know I need to stop. Just I'm writing some notes about here is how I would summarize my general understanding of what's going on right now in a way that I can hand it off to my future self. And that's something you can practice is what what would I need to know to get started the next time and be as close to this sort of flow situation that I'm in right now as possible. But also, if you do insist on finding that flow, you can try to think of rituals or triggers. It could be a drink, it could be a song. You can change the lighting. You can turn on some aromatherapy. It can really be anything, so long as you decide that okay, this is going to be this trigger that I'm going to create. Where every time I hear this song, that's where I'm going to start a work session, and eventually over time, that will become something that gets you into flow, or at least gets you into um, productive a productive session. Yeah, I mean, this can be a problem working on stuff and having really long work sessions where you get into flow and then you keep working until you're kind of exhausted, and then it sort of makes it that much harder to start your next session. So that's one of the reasons why I've got like, here's my 100-word writing habit wristband here. I've got 100 words in today, um, where I just have like a really simple low goal and a ritual of when I do stuff. So I hope that helps. Uh, another long one. I'll take this one from the same person. They really took some time to ask some detailed questions here. Context again, a day only has 24 hours, but the world offers far more exciting and meaningful opportunities than anyone can ever pursue. How do I mix my life like a well-balanced cocktail where the ingredients are carefully measured to create the right combination rather than overwhelming blend of everything that sounds good? I frequently use frameworks like the horizon of focus. That's from getting things done, 30,000 feet, 15,000 feet. I don't know, sort of 30,000, 10,000, 5,000, something like that. And other prioritization strategies, yet I still struggle to narrow my workload down to a point where I actually feel accomplished at the end of the day. Instead, I often feel like no matter how much I get done, it's never enough. So their question is, how can I ensure that I focus my creative energy on truly significant projects instead of getting caught up in too many important but not essential tasks? And most importantly, how can I actively let go of commitments that, while valuable on their own, collectively create an unmanageable and exhausting workload like an overcomplicated, undrinkable cocktail? Um, now, I this was a great metaphor, this cocktail metaphor, and I don't know if this person uh, noticed this part, but this talking about an overcomplicated, undrinkable cocktail kind of tells you the answer there in a way, is that you can choose what kind of cocktail you want to have. So if you want an old fashioned, there's a few ingredients to an old fashioned. If you want a sex on the beach, there's a few ingredients to a sex on the beach. But if you mix together an old fashioned and then sex on the beach, it's not it's not going to be good. And so you kind of have to be the same way with your life. You got to choose one or two things that you want to accomplish in some period of time. I think I like 3 to 5 years, which seems like a lot. People do their New Year's resolutions and they say, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing in this year. I'm going to do this other thing this year." Well, I don't know. In my experience, you can't really get that much done in 1 year. Nothing really big and significant. Like I think it really takes 3 to 5 years to get something done. Like the book that I'm working on right now has been kind of a 5 year project. Between Design for Hackers and The Hard to Start was 6 years. It wasn't necessarily working on the book the whole time, but Mind Management, Not Time Management, between blog post and publishing it, that was like 7 years, something like that. And so while they weren't the main focus, I do like to think long term that way, and I think that that is one way to keep your live cocktail from getting overcomplicated, is to really think long term. What are the things that you want to accomplish for over long periods of time? And you got to really be ruthless about the things that you say no to. I have a hard time with this because I'm somebody who in the Myers-Briggs, I'm a perceiver. I want to have open doors all the time. I am always paying attention to all the stimuli around me. I'm always paying attention to different ideas that come to me, and I've got to, you know, be able to sort of either tweet out the idea and know and hope that it'll come back, or put it in some kind of repository like my Zettelkasten and hope that I'll feel confident that I'll get back to it at some point when the time is right. But I also really have to be able to tell myself, like, no, not all right. That's a good idea, or that would be a fun thing to do. But right now, the main project is such and such book that I'm working on. Doing a lot of meditation really helps. I am on day 89 right now of an hour a day of meditation. And this is the fourth time that I've done 60 days or longer. And it's just so awesome. I see it as like it's part of my work day, just to sit and allow my thoughts to settle. I find it really helpful in helping me. I, I, I I just I'm able to better distinguish what is some idea that maybe would be nice, but I'll put it to the side for now, and what is really important for me to work on right now. Um, I think with the amount of information that we have coming at us all the time, and with tools that can increasingly make us more and more productive, uh, we can get a lot done so fast. I think that it is actually really important for us to meditate. I think that it is, you could call it a part of your workday, really, because it helps you get organized. It helps you decide what to do, and better decide what not to do. In addition to meditation, I think journaling is extremely valuable. It Yeah, just taking the time to write down whatever's coming to mind just for a little bit of time, or even write about some of these other projects that you're considering and why you should or shouldn't do that, and just and ideas that you have too, and just writing about them, but not seeing that as some commitment to follow them further. I find that that helps kind of massage out, get those extra distractions out of the way so that I can focus on those things that are going to make my life that well balanced cocktail that I so desire. And that is a great metaphor. I love that. Okay. How do you plan a Kickstarter campaign so that you make a profit? This would be a relevant question. I recently did the journal prompts workbook, which you can see down in the corner there. Yeah, I was over. Oh, I guess it's in the being covered. The journal prompts workbook. I did the special edition of it. I did a Kickstarter for it, um, and yeah, it was profitable. Uh, and the way that I did that was the tricky thing with Kickstarter campaigns is you're getting paid money, and then there's going to be some fees taken out of that money, and then with a book you're going to have to print and ship that book. Well, people are all over the world, so how do maybe you can figure out how much it costs to print it, though that's not necessarily a certain thing, because uh, you know the more you sell, the cheaper it's going to be to print the books. And then also, what else goes on there? People live all over the world, and you've got to just figure out how to ship to them, and those costs can vary. So you really have to think in terms of scenarios. You're not going to get it exactly right. And the way that I did it was I created a spreadsheet with various scenarios. So I've got like 20,000 people on all my email lists together. And so I kind of estimated that, okay, if 0.5% of them I convert, that would be 50. If is that no, maybe that's even less. It might be 0.25%, and I think 0.5% is like 100, and then uh, uh, 1% or a little bit more than 1% is 250. So I made 50 backers, 100 backers, 250 backers, 500 backers. And that's all going to depend upon your audience size, the kind of conversion rates that you expect. If you have a smaller audience, you'll probably have a higher conversion rate than that. And then from those various scenarios, I created those in the spreadsheet. I created scenarios within those scenarios, sub scenarios, as in top heavy, bottom heavy, and even distribution. And that was just based upon the packages that I have. So I have different packages where, maybe you're getting just an ebook, or you're getting everything, and those have different costs to them. And so, is it going to be evenly distributed amongst the packages? Is it going to be top heavy, where the more uh, expensive packages are the most popular, or is it going to be bottom heavy, where that can be like, so imagine you have three packages. Even distribution would be 33%, 33%, 33% across those three. Top heavy might be 50% for the most expensive package, and then 25%, 25% for the other two. Bottom heavy, top heavy, bottom heavy could be expensive or cheap, whatever, but reverse that, 25, 25, 50. And then from that, you can start to calculate, all right, what's my estimated printing and shipping costs for each package? You don't have to get that exactly right. And then I kind of went for a 50% margin, and the approximate fees for Kickstarter was like 10%. So that's kind of a mouthful. For the Patreon supporters, I do have a screencast where I showed exactly my spreadsheet that I used to plan my Kickstarter campaign. So this person, I don't know if they were a Patreon. I don't think they were a Patreon supporter, but do check out the Patreon. On the Patreon, there is a screencast where I describe the entire spreadsheet. And if you are a Patreon supporter and you see that and you just want to start with my spreadsheet, let me know and I'll just go ahead and send it to you. All right, next one. When writing a series of books on a broad topic like smiling meditation, and actually after this one, I'm going to go look at it in the chat and give some priority to some of you who are here. So thank you for your patience. When writing a series of books on a broad topic like smiling meditation, how do I decide which book to write first? This is from Rohi. All right. How do I decide which book to write first? I think if you're inexperienced at writing books, write the easiest one first. I do think that your experience and your level of comfort with the project is important. Just do the funnest, easiest, shortest, all three of those things, or one of those things. Choose one. Do that book first and get it out there. Now, if you're going for the perfect solution, if you have a lot of experience finishing long projects and you feel confident that you can finish whatever you put your mind to, if you're going for that perfect solution, I would say write the introduction to the bold idea first, and then you want to write sort of deeper application of that idea, or application in specific verticals next. So smiling meditation, I searched on Amazon. I didn't see anything about smiling meditation. I don't know if that is your concept, Rohi. That's a compelling concept. Like, that could be a book title in itself, smiling meditation. I kind of want to know what that's about. As I've just said, I do a lot of meditation, so that would be interesting to me. An example would be, look at Jen Sincero. She has a book called "You Are a Badass," and that has 47,000 ratings on Amazon. And then there's another one called "You Are a Badass at Making Money." So I assume that's a personal finance book. That's 9,000 ratings. And then "You Are a Badass Every Day." I'm not exactly sure how that's different from "You Are a Badass." That is 3.5 thousand ratings. And so, kind of like putting that main concept out there and then applying it to different verticals, or maybe there are sort of sub concepts to that main concept that you want to expand upon. I would say, and actually, that's not necessarily something that you would plan out from the beginning. You might just put that book out there that is your sort of manifesto about smiling meditation, and here's why smiling meditation is important. And then it's a conversation with the world. Is who's reading your book? What sort of questions are you getting? Are you doing an AMA? Are people asking you questions about the book and stuff? And then you will get ideas for your next book. Okay. All right. I'll take a question from the chat now. What are about the importance of the book dimensions? It seems like the most popular are 6x9 and 5x8 for nonfiction paperbacks. I like the by 9 size best. Thoughts? Yeah, good question. This is something that I know when I first started writing books, I didn't think about dimensions much at all, but it is something that you need to know. And so I was sort of surprised uh, by that, and it's something that I think about when I write a book. So what do I? The design for hackers is a big one. I don't know if I can't remember dimensions on that one, but the heart to start is 5 by 8, and then my management on time management is 5.5 by 8.5. And though that for me is like an artistic choice, is um, the heart to start. I wanted it to feel kind of a bit smaller, a little bit more manageable when you hold it in your hands. I think for whatever your book is, try holding books of different dimensions and sizes in your hands and sort of see how it feels. Is that artistically, is that congruent with what you're trying to do with this book? So the Heart Start, I want you to feel uh, confident and empowered. So it's a little bit of a smaller book. My management, not time management, I'm trying to establish a little bit more authority. I'm trying to tell you a little bit more about a detailed system that you can use, and it's a bit more of a money making book, so it wants to have some heft to it. 6 by 9, even larger. I'm trying to think of some books like the Eureka Factor I have, which is 6 by 9. McCartney Yesterday and Today, which is it's all about the writing of yesterday. That's a 6 by 9. I'm not quite sure what to make of that size. It's not my personal favorite size. Maybe it is sort of like a reference book because those are both like very um, have very detailed uh, research in them, and so they might be good for that. I wanted to experiment with, let's see here, on the 100 word writing habit. That one is 6 by 6. So I wanted to feel a bit like an Austin Kleon book that way, and it's square, and you can it's very giftable and has uh, you can really dominate it holding it in your hands, and it is about writing having 100 word writing habit, and so that is all about having something that's manageable, and so the size was a part of that decision. I also wanted to experiment with a non-standard size. 6 by 6 is not available in KDP, so I wanted to be kind of hard on myself, and so I made a 6 by 6 book because Ingram Spark had just introduced non-standard sizes where you can make any size book you want through Ingram Spark. But I have to say, it is a bit of a challenge to have a book that is a non-standard size because you can't publish it through KDP. Amazon will sell the book, but then they'll be ordering it from Ingram Spark, and I kind of hate that because the book vault version of 100 word writing habit, which I sell through my website, is a much better print quality in my opinion. I mean, I don't think it's even an opinion. It's just a much better print quality than the Ingram Spark version. And so I know that Amazon is like ordering the Ingram Spark version to their warehouse and fulfilling it that way. And it kind of pains me that people aren't getting the best print quality for that book. Um, Also, if you have low sales volume, printing a non-standard size through Ingram Spark is a bit difficult. I had a lot of issues at first with 100 word writing habit because it was just showing up as not in stock or not available on Amazon, and it wasn't until I got some sales volume going or it eventually was like saying 21 days. So I had to get some sales volume or some traffic going to the page. There's various mysterious metrics that their algorithms look at to decide whether to order books or not before my book started to be available as Prime because they would order it to their warehouse. So that's something to pay attention to as well is how are you going to distribute the book and is the size that you want available. Okay, back to the Google form questions. I keep hearing that hybrid publishing is a scam, and you either need to self-publish or traditional publish to get your work out there. What are your thoughts on this, and why do you think so? Take a quick drink. Now, is hybrid publishing a scam? That's going to depend upon your definition of a scam. Uh, for some people, the definition of a scam is basically you could have done it yourself, but you paid somebody to do it for you. So some people might think that a plumber is a scam or an auto mechanic is a scam. I think the classic example of this is on Hacker News when Dropbox was uh, introduced. There's some comment on there. Someone said, "What? Who would pay for this? Who would pay $5 a month for to have their files synced? You can just set up a web dev server and do this, that, and the other thing, and something with security. You can do all that yourself." Like, yeah, you can do that yourself if you're a software developer, and so that might be someone's definition of a scam. Now, I think that the more common definition of a scam is that something isn't quite what it seems, or that you're being deliberately deceived. And this is where I think that it's important to at least know what your options are and know what you're getting into if you are considering hybrid publishing. So know the royalty rates that you would be getting if you uploaded to Amazon KDP, if you did print on Ingram Spark, if you did print on KDP. Because I would say, like, I do know some people who, I don't know how this happens. They upload their book to Ingram Spark. They do their paperback with Ingram Spark, which makes perfect sense. But then they say, like, publish their ebook through Ingram Spark. Now, I think that fits a pretty close definition of a scam, because I don't know the exact numbers, but if you're publishing your ebook through Ingram Spark, they're just kind of publishing it to Amazon on Kindle, and you're just not getting the royalty rate that you would get. And all you had to do was just go to KDP and upload the book, and it's not that complicated. And so in a way, that's kind of a scam, because you're not getting the royalty rate that you thought. Now, if you're somebody who just thinks like, well, I like the convenience, I don't really care, this is my first book, this is something I'm doing on the side, and you know that they're taking a portion of your royalties for that in exchange for that convenience, and it is a certain type of convenience, then yeah, then it's not a scam, right? And so extend that to something like hybrid publishing. Like, I think it would be hard to say that Scribe publishing is a scam. Now, they had some problems recently with, it sounds like they had a problem with their CEO who was maybe scamming the company. But if you know what you're paying for, and you are trying to get a certain thing, then it's not going to be a scam. Like, it's $26,000 if you have a manuscript to get their help, but they're going to help you with editing, they're going to help you with proofreading, they're going to help you with cover design, they're going to help you with interior design, ISBN, copyright form, designing graphics, within the book, 50 copies of the book, the audio book, the promotional help. Now, that's $26,000. I've spent $77,000 creating and promoting mind management, not time management. Now, was that all on the things that I just described? No, I did a lot of that stuff myself, because I have a design degree. I could design my own cover. I could design my own interior and stuff. But $26,000, while it might seem like a lot, like, publishing is just expensive. Now, off that $77,000 I've spent creating and promoting mind management, not time management, $100,000 profit on top of that. So, you can make a profit off of these things. And if you're somebody who's busy and wants to do something well, then having a hybrid publisher, somebody with experience to help you get a book out there, can be really helpful. And in the case of Scribe Media, which I'm an ambassador, by the way, kdv.co/scribe, they can help you with all those things, and they are all publishing professionals, have a lot of experience publishing books, but you're going to get still the same royalties that you would if you were like me and you just did everything yourself. So they set up the Amazon account for you, if I understand correctly, and then you end up getting the royalty that you would normally get, which for ebooks is going to be 70% if you are charging between $2.99 and $9.99, for example. I give really specific numbers on all that royalty stuff in How to Sell a Book, but just yeah, again, it depends upon your definition of is hybrid publishing a scam is going to depend upon your definition of a scam, and that's going to be different for everybody. But know what your options are, and if you do decide to do hybrid publishing, then know why, know what it is that you're paying for, and what you're uh, giving up. And let's go back to the chat and see a question here. From Dan, my question is more about productivity and follow through in general. I am a songwriter with multiple songs / albums collecting cyber dust on YouTube. I often find myself motivated around the creative process, but I struggle with the less creative peripheral activities necessary to make a success. How do I build motivational consistency around the parts that I don't love? Yeah, you feel motivated to create the work, but making the work or managing the work or marketing the work. You like to make, you don't so much like to market, perhaps. And maybe you also don't like to manage. Um, so, how do you get the motivational consistency here? I'm trying to think about kind of what I do for myself. Is I always am just trying to create systems. Anything I can do to eliminate decision making and also to make whatever the action is that I'm trying to get myself to do, make that a smaller action, making it as small as possible. That's why I've got like the 100-word writing habit, right? I mean, I like to write, but I don't always want to, and so you want to make it manageable. So, for example, with say managing Amazon ads, it can be really overwhelming for me, and I could spend unlimited time on that. I think that's another thing is that you could easily get caught up in these things thinking they're going to be the things that make your work a success. Like if only you could get it in front of more people, if only you could market it harder. But really it's got to go back to the craft and doing better and better work. So while these things are still important, it's important not to get lost to the point where you're just not making it all you're doing is marketing. And so with Amazon ads for myself, yeah, I got myself acquainted with it at first, and then I sort of created a habit for it where I had an assistant go and check how much I had spent, how much I had made, and send me an email every Friday telling me that stuff, and then creating some rules for how to adjust the ads and just formalizing it. Formalize it and make it very, very small and very, very repeatable. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter how small you're starting. Um, just to like get yourself used to doing these things that don't seem like much fun, like bookkeeping. I hated, still dislike, but hated doing bookkeeping, and it got to the point where, yeah, I had a bookkeeper, but it was basically it wasn't efficient because they would ask me what some of the expenses were and I would tell them, and I might as well just do that within QuickBooks. So I just hired somebody to teach me how to do that, spent a couple hours on it, and then created a list. Creating a process list also really helps a lot. So I do my income reports every month. It's not always fun to collect that information and to make those reports, but the reports are valuable. But I have a process list. And oh, by the way, the Patreon supporters, I have a screencast on the Patreon where I show exactly how I collect all the information and how I go through my process list for my books to do my income reports. And that's just in Obsidian, just a bullet point list. It can start as a sloppy operating procedure, like I talked about in Mind Management, not Time Management, where anything that you can do to not have to have the same thought more than once, and to reduce your barriers to starting whatever undesirable activity it is helps a lot. Another thing that I do, and this is at your own risk, is I will use little treats. Like I have nicotine lozenges. I have never been a smoker, but nicotine is kind of neurotropic, and it can be enjoyable to have a 1 milligram lozenge in my lip. And I'm not an addictive personality, so for example, when I have written my Love Mondays emails and I'm scheduling those, that's not always an activity that I'm really looking forward to. Or if I'm about to collect income report data, then I'll just put a 1 milligram nicotine lozenge in my lip, and I'll do that activity. Now I only do this like once a month or something like that. So it's not like an everyday thing, but it's just sort of a treat to make these sort of undesirable things a little bit more desirable. So I hope that helps. I'm going to look again at the Google Sheets or the Google form questions. How do you put facts into a cohesive dateline to keep the reader interested and the story flowing? I've tried the sticky notes system, but they all fell down. I'm not exactly sure what the sticky note system is, but I assume that they like write facts and stuff on the sticky notes and put them on a board and all that. I'll start with saying that if I'm writing something and there's a lot of facts that I'm covering and those facts are on some kind of timeline, I'm not my end goal is definitely not to put those facts into a cohesive dateline. I feel like the the order of events, the chronology is secondary to story. So what I will definitely do is I will make a literature note. That's from Digital Zettelkasten, or look up Zettelkasten, where I just keep a timeline of events, and that's important for me to refer to. So I'll just have like a bullet point of an event, and I'll put the dates next to them. I'll put the dates, and then put the bullet points next to them. I'm doing this right now with there's a lot in the book that I'm working on involving Leonardo da Vinci. And so there's a lot to untangle in understanding the chronology of events in his life. And so I do have a timeline that's just a note. It's called Leonardo da Vinci timeline. It's got different years on it. Here's when he was born, or here's when he died. Here's when he worked on this project, and here's when he stopped working on this project and went and worked on this project. Here's when the invasion of northern Italy happened that caused this project to not go as planned. And these aren't always, these are things that like are events that I might find from different pieces of research, but then I put them in that literature note. But when I finally write the thing, I want to start, I want it to be interesting. And so like there's nothing I hate more than when I'm reading a biography, especially if it's like some artist or creator and there's only one viable biography for them, and it starts off with like Smacky McPeterson was born in Huntsville, Alabama in 1932, and his parents did this for a living, and it's just starting off just with the facts in chronological order. I know that I'm in for a long slog trying to read that book, and I don't know if I'll get through it. I think it's much better to start with an interesting scene and spread out from there. So like if I say I threw a gum wrapper out my third story window, and when I came outside, it had expanded into an elephant and it was floating in the air and everyone was looking at it. That's not as interesting as if I say I came outside and everyone on the street was looking up in the air, and I acted like I didn't notice because I was embarrassed. Why is he embarrassed? Well, I don't usually litter, but I had thrown a gum wrapper out the third story window. It had turned into an elephant and was floating in the air. So the same facts, but they're just put into a chronology that keeps the reader interested and keeps them asking questions. I think like the movie Memento is kind of the perfect example of that. It kind of goes in reverse, and you can see it a lot with Breaking Bad. The opening scene would always be like, here's a really compelling thing happening, and as you're watching it, you're like, well, wait, what? Why is this guy in his underwear? Why is he recording his last words into this video camera? What's going on here? Um, with my management, not time management, I started off with, here I'm eating my last meal in my empty apartment. And then throughout the book, I'm kind of jumping around to various vignettes, and they're not all happening in a chronology necessarily. By the way, for the Patreon subscribers, I have something called Media Mechanic, which is a podcast that I did where I rewrote the intro to Atomic Habits, James Clear's Atomic Habits. Obviously a great book, but when I read the introduction to it, I can't help but feel like, oh, that's not how I would have told that amazing story. And so I talk about that in Media Mechanic and rewrite that. So to summarize that, make a literature note, put the facts in chronology or just a text thing, and put the facts in there. But I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but I try not to write in that way. That is the preparation stage that then gets incubated, that leads to the illumination of the much better writing if you do write that note that has that chronology on it. Okay, back to the chat. Janice, what are some of the best bookstores online to market books? Some major bookstores don't support self-published authors. Best bookstores online to market books. I don't know, I might need a clarification on that one. I mean, I think Amazon is a great place to put your books. Publish Drive or Draft to Digital can help you get your books out to dozens and dozens of retailers. I'm rethinking whether or not I'm going to be doing that now that I have a lot of direct sales. Now, major bookstores don't support self-published authors. I think that would, yeah, I would say that's sort of generally true of Barnes and Noble. But you can still if you publish through Ingram Spark, a paperback or a hardcover, then people can walk into a Barnes and Noble, for example, and order your book. They might need to push the representative a little bit to actually order it. They might say, "Oh, it's out of print," or no, it's not. It's in your system. You order from Ingram. You can order that book. But yeah, they're going to keep it in stock. Not so much. Somebody did a really brilliant stunt a while back. Pat Flynn got his audience to go to various Barnes and Nobles and to buy his book there, and then they ended up stocking it. I guess I'd have to look at independent bookstores. They might help as well. Yeah, this is something that has always been like on my list of marketing things maybe to try, is to like walk into an independent bookstore and say like, "Hey, would you order my book?" But not living in the US, whenever I am in the US, it just it doesn't tend to be one of my top priorities to finally try out. So wish I could help more with that, but that's what I've got. Next question. I have recently completed your 100-word writing challenge. I now have a growing collection of first drafts, which will need editing and publishing eventually. I foresee they'll just keep piling up unless I do something about it. Would it be useful to set another habit to spend time editing and publishing these drafts? What do you think would be a useful way to do this? Would it be useful to set another habit to spend time editing and publishing these drafts? It could be. I mean, if they're 100-word drafts, you know, I might just publish them or not spend much time editing them, or switch to where my habit is to write and publish the 100-word thing in a day, and put it on Substack or Medium. And probably not a lot of people are going to be reading 100-word posts, but it can be a useful habit. Like it really sort of depends what you're working on. I've talked before about the 3 C's: consistency, confidence, and craft. So consistency, when you're first writing, as you have found, having a 100 word writing habit, having some sort of habit. Can I consistently show up and write? So you kind of got that down. It sounds like you're ready to go to the next stage, which would be confidence. Do you have the confidence to put your work out there and to, withstand it being criticized or withstand getting crickets? Um, and that could be sort of the next thing that you're working on. Maybe you have the same habit, but you're just adding the publishing thing onto it. And then there's craft, which would be, can I make it good? So can I show up consistently? Can I publish it? Can I make it good? Consistency, confidence, craft. Um, Now, if you are looking at these 100-word first drafts and thinking about how they might go together into something that could be a different kind of habit, um, I would still encourage you to get used to publishing before you take on something like that. I often find if I write a bunch of different, smaller, disparate articles, they will eventually stitch together into some kind of book. Maybe not all of them. Maybe I will be repeating them myself and they will overlap, but they can generally um, based on the exercising of those ideas, I can then write a book that is based on those things. I'm not necessarily just like copying and pasting. Can I still make a living as a writer? Uh, it's possible. Yes, definitely. It's difficult. I'm even finding it difficult. It depends upon your definition of a living. I'm in Colombia. I don't have any kids. I could make much more money than I'm making just by focusing more on, say, courses than writing books, for example. But I'm still enjoying the process of writing books, and I'm still, um, yeah, I just liked books. It's certainly possible. There's more paths than ever before to make a living as a writer. Just sort of putting things on KDP or putting things in Kindle Unlimited, as I don't know, cranking out a romance novel every week, or I guess now with AI, people would be doing it every day. Some people, I feel like that's kind of a race to the bottom. That's happening less and less. There is Substack. If you're an expert in some field that people will pay for a newsletter for, you can get subscribers that way. Direct sales, I'm enjoying direct sales on Shopify. Shopify also will syndicate your store to Instagram and to TikTok and to Facebook. My Shopify um, affiliate link, by the way, is kadavy.net/Shopify. Kickstarter is another way. So there's more paths than ever before. I feel like the more informational the stuff that you're writing is, the harder it's going to be to make a living. Down to possibly impossible. Um, you know, if you're spending a lot of time with ChatGPT, you're probably getting an idea of when do you go to ChatGPT to look for information and when do you want to pick up a book. I like to pick up a book so I can try on somebody's brain. If I just need some information, I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I used to buy a book and then just sort through all of it and look in the search or look in the index and try to find an answer to my specific question. But now, if I have a specific question, I'm going to talk to ChatGPT. So I think that then behooves you as a writer, if you're, say, writing nonfiction, to have a unique point of view. Um, this is something that I have tried to work on in my own career consciously since it began, is when people pick up my book and read it, are they going to walk away having a sense that they read a book that could only have been written by the author who wrote that book? Um, I think sometimes I'll read a nonfiction book on a subject. I mean, this happens a lot. I'll read a whole nonfiction book on a subject and I'll talk about it to somebody and they'll say, "Oh, who wrote it?" I don't even know who wrote it because it's just information. And yeah, that person might have somewhat of a unique point of view, but I like to think that if you're reading one of my books, that you're going to walk away knowing my name and having a sense of the type of experience that you'll get writing the next book. So that's what I'm trying to do, in my attempt to continue making a living as a writer. I do want to talk about a strategy that I've been thinking about, which I'll call barbell wide. Uh, it's sort of based on the idea of a barbell strategy. A barbell, has a weight on one side and a weight on another side, and there's nothing in the middle. Well, I've been a wide author for a really long time, which means that my books aren't only on Amazon, they're sort of everywhere. My ebooks, especially, authors will either be in Kindle Unlimited or they will be wide and their ebook books will be available all over. And I use an aggregator, use Publish Drive to get my ebooks on Barnes and Noble and Kobo and Google Play and Apple Books and all that. But now I'm starting to wonder like why I do that. And so I'm thinking about cutting out that middle to make it just Amazon and direct sales, because now I sell direct and I make a much bigger profit selling direct. So that's something I'm thinking about is what I call barbell wide, which would just be Amazon and direct. So I wouldn't be in Kindle Unlimited. I would still, because I'd be selling my ebooks on my website. And then so maybe Amazon is less of a revenue center than it used to be and more of a customer acquisition channel. And then cutting out those others could be something that just makes the administrative part of things a little less onerous. And, you know, part of the reason why I was publishing wide for all these years has been that I'm like, okay, I'm not making a lot of money from these other platforms, but I'm fighting the good fight. I'm giving people a choice other than Amazon. Well, buy from Amazon or buy from me is a choice. And it's actually, if we're going to get into, you know, if it's a moral choice, a moral sort of setup or not, it's still a pretty virtuous choice, because when you're publishing wide, you're publishing to Amazon, uh, Google, Apple, Walmart, which is Kobo, and then Barnes and Noble starts to look like it's a mom and pop shop or something like that. So like, is it really great and virtuous that you're, publishing to Amazon and then all these other giants? If you don't like Amazon, then buy from me. So that's the way I'm starting to look at things, and I'm sort of exploring that path. So can you still make a living as a writer? Yes, definitely. It is challenging. You will have to figure things out, and it also depends upon your living. My cost of living is extremely low, and my income is quite low, as people know if they read my income reports. I lost almost $1,000 last month. You'll find that in the next income report. How to take notes from a book. I've written about this in Digital Zettelkasten. I think I've written about it in a blog post about Zettelkasten as well. But in some, I highlight as I'm reading. I do this in ebooks. Highlight as I'm reading, and I color code my highlights. So yellow is just a general highlight. Blue is it fits some theme that I am thinking about, or it's an important highlight. Orange is something to follow up on, and then pink is like new information. Maybe it's a word that I don't recognize, and I put in the notes what that word means. For example, now if you don't have a color e-reader, which I read mostly on my black and white Kindle, then with Readwise, what I'll do is I'll just put .b, .o, .p, and you can have it so that those tags get translated into yellow, blue, orange, pink. Readwise, Kadavy.net/Readwise, 60-day free trial. And then what I do is, after I've done all the highlights, I've read the whole book, then I export those highlights in Markdown form, and I'm able to do that with Readwise. There's probably some other ways to do it. It's probably a little cumbersome, but with Readwise, I can just export to Markdown, and then I will go through those highlights during crumb time. Just highlight the highlights. What are the best highlights? And then a literature note if I really want to understand the book, where I will split the screens on my iPad and go through the highlights of the highlights, and then write kind of summaries of the information that's there. And then I'll often break it up into my own logical flow of that book and what I think is the most important information from that book. Let's get back to the chat, see if there's some more questions I can get to. Thomas, I'm eager to write books sometimes. I have an idea about the title, but don't really know where and how to start. I need help, please. Yeah, so I think that you might be an inductive person like I am, to which I would say just start writing. Just get a habit, maybe 100-word writing habit, and write a little bit every day and keep writing, and you'll start to see, and don't be afraid to repeat yourself, and um, you'll start to see some themes emerge, and then a book can come from that. I kind of write about that in How to Write a Book as well. And there's a bunch of more questions that I would love to get to, but our hour-long AMA live stream is up here, so I'm sure some of you probably took your lunch hours and are probably have taken off, perhaps even since we had a late start with my technical incompetence. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for coming to the AMA, and I guess a call to action. If you enjoyed this, if you enjoy the work that I do, I really would appreciate your support on Patreon. It's not a charity situation. As I've mentioned throughout this live stream, there's a bunch of different uh, screencasts that I've done and different bonus podcasts where I have found it to be a really useful place for me to just sort of quickly teach different things that I'm learning to manage my business. And I don't have sort of the algorithmic pressure of putting content into the dark forest, such as YouTube, where I'm trying to get eyeballs or something, where I can really get in depth and specific. So check it out, patreon.com/Kadavy. The $5 level will get you access to dozens, I don't know, hundreds of pieces of bonus podcasts and videos. I haven't talked about it much over the last few years or pushed it much, but I am starting to try to do more stuff there. So would love to see you there. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun for me, and I hope to do another one soon.